Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Yakkety Yak with James and Zack. I'm Zack.
And I'm James. Hello.
And we are going to continue talking about the sets that will still be legal in New Modern. Is that what we're calling it these days? New Modern?
Very modern. That was my choice.
Very modern. The cutting edge of Dice Masters. And we're going to talk today about the Guardians of the Galaxy set, the first of the just barrage of sets we had starting in the fall, one after another, 1 month. But there was quite a lot of gap between this one and the Batman set, and it was kind of a nice change.
This is
so we'll look through.
Special set for me because it's the only one I've ever had a gravity feed for. I managed to open
there you go.
massive numbers of packs. It's good.
I think it was a good draft set, but it got kind of overlooked because X-Men First Class came out right away, and then the WKOs were right after that, and so everybody was drafting that instead. But I thought it was a good set to draft as well.
I enjoyed it. It's good. And I pulled some super rares, which is always good.
Yeah, there you go. We're going to talk about some of those coming up here, but we're starting alphabetically with the common Adam Warlock.
While Adam Warlock is active, if you're listening on the radio, your character dies when field effects trigger twice. Obviously useful. I think we now have an absorbing man, which does the same thing for less cost, though. So unless you want to do a super combo team with both of those on it, I suspect absorbing man
4 times now. Yeah.
He is common, so you might be able to get him more easily. But rare absorbing man is probably a better choice, I would think.
Yeah. But while we're on Adam Warlock, we can't forget about the uncommon Adam Warlock. With he is KO'd by combat damage, move any character dice that damaged him to his card. When fielded, return those dice to their owner's field zone at the same level. So I know plenty of people have tried combo things with this, with the Madam Web, which will be coming up soon, and using Nowhere. Also in this set, to swap him in at the last second so that all of your opponent's characters get caught up in his effect. And then if you just never field him ever again, then they just stay on your card and you have access to they don't have access to him for the rest of the game.
Shout out to Steve, who's got a particularly nasty team at the moment with this. Very good.
Yeah.
Fun combo.
Yeah, so takes a little bit of setup, but I think that could be interesting if you can get all of your opponent's good pieces in one fell swoop.
And you can Nowhere, as you say, you can use the Madam Web. Nowhere her into Adam Warlock, and then possibly Nowhere him again into something more threatening like Hulk. Fix it. Okay. Sorry, when I say Hulk, I mean fix it, obviously. Fix it is the new Hulk. Okay, next is Agent Venom, common, I think.
Yeah.
He's got Call Out. When this character die attacks, target character die is the only character die that may block this character die. So you can name a character, and either your opponent doesn't block or they have to block with that character. Which is quite good if you want to remove something, because they're not going to want to let him through because he's got an attack of 3, 4, 5. So if they don't block him and they don't have Kate Bishop, then they're going to be letting a big attack through. So they might have to block with what you name, which might be, for example, Shriek or something you don't want to see. And it's got, if Agent Venom attacks a villain character die with call out, such as Shriek, he cannot be KO'd this turn. So that's even if they've managed to pump Shriek's attack, or you're calling out a heftier villain, he's just going to stay where he is, which is great.
Yeah. Lots of villains coming out these days, so having that piece specifically target at him is not so bad.
Next up,
Angela. So the Super Angela has Infiltrate, another of the new mechanics from this set. Infiltrate characters, if you have forgotten, because they don't come up very often, when they go unblocked, instead of dealing their combat damage to the opponent, they deal 1 damage and then come back to the field. So it's a way of getting your unblocked characters to deal damage, but then also getting to keep them out, so they're still around for blockers or whatever. And Super Angela makes that very viable, because while she's active, your character dies with Infiltrate can't be blocked, but they deal no combat damage. So you can't just have them go through unblocked all the time for free. But your Infiltrate characters are definitely going to get to trigger Infiltrate all the time. And there's a couple of different ways you can take advantage of that, with Ricochet or Black Widow coming up here pretty soon. But also there was always the combo where you could attack with with Angela, and then either blank her or remove her from the field temporarily, so that now her second part of her ability isn't active, and you get to swing through with all your characters unblocked. And so it's a great way to get a whole field to get through even your opponent's biggest wall.
She kind of makes Infiltrate functional, I think. Although, like many other things, Infiltrate has lost a lot with the passing of the rare cube. No tears.
Okay, actually, I'm going to be right back. I gotta take something out of the oven, so we'll pause here, and then I'll edit this part out of the video.
Okay.
All right, 1 second. Okay, sorry.
No worries. So moving on to not Beta Ray Bill, surprisingly. One of the Black Widows, I suspect. Deadly Black Widow.
When this set came out, Deadpool was still active, and the rare King Black Bolt was still a great way to, get one character to make sure all the rest of them got through. And the uncommon Black Widow was then the cheapest character with Deadly that was in the game. Since then, there's been a Karnak in the Thor set that's also a 3-cost with Deadly, and they're pretty similar in terms of fielding costs and purchase costs and everything. But if you're looking for something that has Deadly, that's one of the cheapest and best ways to get it.
And she's Avengers. Probably slightly more interesting is the rare, who soups up Infiltrate. So if you're going with the Angela, if you have the super rare Angela, I think Black Widow is a pretty required option without the cube, because while she's active, when your character dies, use Infiltrate, they deal an additional damage, which is a bit like sort of pseudo dragon for Attune. Black Widow is for Infiltrate or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
So pretty interesting there. We've also then moved on to Captain America. I'm obviously a fan of the uncommon Captain America Chemistry Project. At the end of your attack step, if Captain America was blocked but not KO'd, he deals damage equal to his attack to target opponent. An ability originally on Obelisk the Tormentor, so I've sometimes called him Captain America the Tormentor. But I took this to the WKO in the fall. Worked out pretty well there. It is a bit expensive. Nowadays, the only force block left is the uncommon Wrecker, which is 2 fists. What I used to do was use the giant spider global to do a force block, and then I could use fists for the Cone of Cold global to pump him up once he'd been blocked. You need a lot of fists to make it work now. It can be kind of expensive to get in the field if he keeps getting removed. But the combo with this was that if you get him blocked and then you pump up his attack, and then you can use the Kate Bishop global to bring him back. He was blocked, but he wasn't KO'd, guaranteed, and you get to deal a bunch of damage to your opponent. If you have, 4 fists, you can force block him and then use Cone of Cold twice, and he does 10 damage that way. So
and then he just sits in the field ready to do it again next turn.
Exactly. Yeah. So a bit expensive, but if you can make it work, it's pretty dominating.
Pretty strong. We'll maybe fairly quickly skip over 2 more. There's a Captain America Super Rare, which is also good for Infiltrate, but I've not yet really seen it have much play. And Captain Britain Iron Man, which is kind of cool. It's got an interesting ability. While Captain Britain Iron Man is active, whenever you field a character die or use a basic action die, you may purchase a copy of that die for up to 3 less. Seems like it's ripe for shenanigans, and I'm sure better minds than us will find out what those shenanigans are, but I've yet to see it played effectively.
Yeah, if you're trying to buy a lot of the same thing, that seems useful, but tough to get out in the first place. Moving on to the collector. What hasn't already been said about the rare collector? The ability to get any character directly into the field, trigger when fielded effects with that. You don't have to purchase or field something. You can just pay 2 less than the purchase cost and put it into the field. You can use it to buy your opponent's characters. Obviously, it's been used a lot because it is a particularly interesting ability, and it was a highlight of quite a few WKO teams that weren't Yanti ones.
It's people have used it. It's marvelous. Let's we won't flog a dead horse.
Yeah, exactly.
Or actually, flog a perfectly healthy horse in this game.
But the Cosmic Cube right next to it. Obviously, we've lost the rare.
Bye rare. So we won't talk about that. That's had the ban hammer applied to it in modern. I think it's still legal in golden though, and that's very modern clearly. The common I quite like the common, and I think Truby used it to great effect in one of his virtual online teams. For churn, basically. During your clear and draw step, when you draw this die from your bag, you may send it and any other dice you've drawn this turn out of play. For each die sent out of play, draw a die. So once it's in your bag, you don't even have to roll it, which is a very unusual trigger. So when you draw the die, you can trigger its effect, and you basically, if you didn't pick what you want out of your bag, you can put them in out of play and draw some more, which is a lovely way of churning through your bag. And I can see how that might be useful on a fix-it team, for example, where you miss your fix-it the first time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you're not getting the rolls you need to do, Heimdall or something, I mean, getting to go through 4 dice and just send them right out of play and then draw 4 more. I mean, that's basically your whole bag most of the time.
Yeah, good churn.
Mm-hmm. I think James is going to try and argue for Cosmo.
Yeah.
Bourgeois.
I mainly like it for the subtitle, which is obviously Russian, I would imagine, since he's Cosmo, but it's also the same in Slovak, so it's close to my heart. He's a 2-cost. He's got lovely fielding costs. He has an interesting ability. If Cosmo Space Dog is KO'd while blocking, unblocked attacking character dice deal no more than 2 damage this turn. It's a little bit conditional, but if you can imagine a situation where somebody's attacking with a massive fix-it and another character, and you block the other character and leave fix-it to go through, and if the other attacking character doesn't have sufficient attack to knock out Cosmo, you could use their magic missile to ping out the rest of Cosmo's defense, thereby knocking out Cosmo. Then Hulk, fix-it. So their fix-it would go through doing only 2 damage instead of 47. But it is a bit conditional, obviously. But
yeah,
he's just about the only dog in the whole universe that I like. So there you go.
There you go.
We've just lost half the viewers there.
Yeah, right. Probably me at this point too. All right, let's talk about Daisy Johnson. Pretty beautiful die, first of all. One of my favorites there. And the uncommon, Mr. Hyde's daughter. When she attacks, you may pay up to 3 shields. For each shield you pay, Daisy Johnson deals 1 damage to all other character dice. Billy, if you had, I don't know, Staff of the Forgotten One or the uncommon Danger Room, where if your opponent's characters took any damage, well, you wouldn't want to use the uncommon Danger Room because she does deal damage to all other character dice. But the Staff of the Forgotten One, you use this. You leave Daisy Johnson in the field, and then you pay a shield, deal 1 damage to everything. You've not just knocked out your entire opponent's field. And if you have your own Fix-It in the field, you've also just triggered him to deal an additional 6 or 7 or 8 damage as well. And that would be a pretty easy combo to pull off. The nice thing about it is it's not when fielded or anything, so you can just leave it until you're ready to do the damage and your staff rolls.
Also, I think Spider-Man War of the Heart, in that massive wall of text, there's a sentence which says your psychics take no damage this turn.
Oh, yeah.
So if you want to get a wide field and you've got him and a bunch of your psychics in the field and she attacks, then your psychics would survive and their low-cost characters would not. Or low defense characters. So
yeah, really great. I think that needs to see a second look from a few people.
Okay, we're gonna skip over people like Drax. There are plenty of characters in Guardians of the Galaxy who are pretty good on a Guardians team. That's fine, good. There's nothing wrong with Guardians teams, Ben. But in the general very modern meta, maybe Drax's fielding costs are prohibitive, for example. So we're going to skip over to Dum Dum. I think you wanted to talk about Dum Dum, Zach.
Yeah, the uncommon there. It can be a little tough to pull off with as many pieces as you usually need, but getting +1 attack for each of your sidekick dice in the field zone. I was a huge fan of the Foot Ninja. That also got defense, which made it a little bit broken, realistically. And Dum Dum is not an ally, so he doesn't get a lot of the other benefits of being a sidekick, like being able to be targeted with the Insect Plague Global. But that does help him out on a Spider-Man War of the Heart team, where he can sneak through as a non-sidekick that can't be blocked. And so that combo was pretty effective. Ben used that against me in the Versatile Worlds 2 and managed to beat me by only buying 3 dice. That was that and Spider-Man being 2 of them. But yeah, just being able to get buffed by something that you're going to roll a lot of anyway.
He's a hard hitter.
Yeah. Possibly the rare as well.
Yeah, possibly to prevent damage to your psychic so your opponent couldn't ping them out with magic missile, for example.
Or the Daisy Johnson global that you just talked about.
Oh, yeah.
The ability.
Yeah, that would work. Okay, we're gonna for the same reasons as Drax, we're gonna skip over Gamora and Groot, which have their places, no doubt, on Guardians teams. Groot has an interesting global, at least. Pay 2 shields, gain 1 life, use this ability only once per turn. His ability is fantastic on a Guardians team. Otherwise, not so much, maybe. Ghost Rider has never had a good card, which saddens me because Ghost Rider was my first favourite character. And I actually have Ghost Riders number 2 and 3 from the late 70s, early 80s. But no, sorry.
Yeah.
Groot, super rare. Where was he? Again, seems like it should be ripe for shenanigans, but yeah.
I do actually own this card. I pulled this one, and I originally tried to brew with it. And if you have better ideas than me, then message me or leave some comments here. But my thinking was every time I tried to put a team together, I was trying to get a bunch of good when fielded effects out into the field, and I realized that by the time you manage to get Groot Thor out to trigger all of them, you've already got him down to like 6 life anyway. You're fielding a bunch of Fireflies or Nobbies or whatever in order to get when fielded effects out there, and then you want to field Groot to trigger them all at once. I mean, just keep fielding the ones you've already got, and you're probably going to win anyway. And so I couldn't figure out a way to make Groot Thor work in which it was just not a gimmick. And for someone that needs to use when fielded effects, he's got 4, 6, or 9 defense, and unless you've got Malekith Global or something, you're not getting him out of the field that easily once he's been in.
Okay, so maybe not. Hulk is notable mainly for his fantastic dice. Just look at those dice; they're lovely. The uncommon seemed like it might be mildly usable, but honestly, I've never seen it used. Ironheart we're going to skip over because, frankly, useless. King Black Bolt deserves a mention. But he's been largely nerfed by the Cosmic Cube ban. When King Black Bolt is targeted by a global ability or action die, if anybody doesn't actually know this already, he deals 1 damage to your opponent. Very strong with Cosmic Cube, not so much without. And we've also lost Agent Venom from Spider-Man.
Yeah, that was the thing I was going to mention. Yeah, without being able to do it with a generic energy, now you need 20 of a specific energy type. Although you could put multiple globals on your team, but then you're getting a little too focused.
He was very fast. He's not anymore. No, who knows? Okay, Nowhere is well worth a mention. Is obviously the rare is useful.
Mm-hmm. Being able to swap character dice in the used pile or field zone for an unpurchased character costing 1 more. So it's a great way to get any of the White Lanterns or the What If characters that needed very specific energy types. You could just take any 3 cost and turn them into the 4 cost those. That was one of the first uses for it. People figured out you could do some pretty interesting combat tricks where you can, I'm using one right now in the 2-team takedown tournament where you can use it after blockers are declared. To do some shenanigans with, your 5-cost character becoming a 6-cost or any other combination. I know that for the modern transition, there was a great team with Superman who you could make really cheap with Jimmy Olsen and then turn him into a 7-cost, but that's gone.
Yeah, pretty interesting stuff. And that we mentioned the Adam Warlock combo using Madame Web, who's a 4-cost, into what's his name? Adam Warlock, who's a 5-cost, who captures all the dice that you've just sucked in with Madame Web. Fantastic shenanigan potential.
Yeah.
That's just brilliant. The other 2, is there much more? Oh, yes. Yeah.
The uncommon was just being talked about the other day, but you have to have a bunch of characters in your reserve pool when you roll it, which is tricky to pull off. But if you can do it, you can guarantee that they all become level 3 and they only cost 1 to field. So
they do have to roll to character spaces though, so I'm not convinced by that.
Yeah, there was some debate about the ruling on that, so we'll see if they get a specific ruling on that one.
No, it's all right. I settled that one, I
think. Yeah, I think you're right.
I party pooped that one.
Yeah, so I don't know how you manage to guarantee character faces the same turn that comes up. It seems like it might be helpful, but I just don't know if it's going to be able to get them all together at the same time.
What was the common? No. Okay, let's move on because time is short. Kiln.
The kiln.
You can talk about that, I think.
Oh, the common kiln. Players must spend 1 more to purchase each character die for every character die in their field zone. I loved this card on my Satchel team. I didn't need to buy very many characters, and I needed continuous dice in the field anyway. It definitely hurt my opponents pretty hard, and there were very few ways to remove continuous dice. I think, in fact, nowadays there are none.
Pretty cool on it. Yeah, but we don't have the Satchel team, maybe.
No, so you really have to have a team that relies on only having a few characters. But if you needed one, this would be a great way to shut your opponents down pretty quickly.
Okay. Others, not so, there's some fun to be had with the others, but let's move on to Madame Masque, who's seen an awful lot of play in her various incarnations. Mainly the common and the uncommon, rare, not so much.
Yeah.
The comment says, while Madame Masque is active, your character dice cannot be targeted by global abilities. Largely the same as Wonder Woman, is a Child of Clay, also a 4-cost.
Hmm.
And the main difference really is that Wonder Woman has better stats, but she has a 2 fielding on her third side, if that makes a
But the other major difference, though, is that Madame Masque says they can't be targeted by global abilities, whether you activate them or your opponent activates them.
right. So which
So
could,
if you need to do any kind of switcheroo with your own characters, Madame Masque is going to shut you down as well.
yeah, that's a disadvantage that you can't do your own. But if you're running a healer team, it turns out that Madame Masque Common is the better choice than.
Hmm. Hmm.
Anyway, the uncommon shuts down when fielded abilities for the low price of 4, which is extremely strong in the modern meta
Yeah.
because we've got all this knobby, shriek, blob things going on. Yeah, if you don't know about that already, you should find out about it. It's a good one.
Yeah, her defense stats are a little bit of a detriment in that case because she's got 2, 3, or 4 defense, and so it's not impossible for them to, roll something that they want to field and then ping her off and then field it on the same turn. But if you can find a way to protect her, then she can be pretty good.
Yeah, strong. Okay, Madam Web next. I always sort of mix
Yeah,
their
let's talk
names
about
up.
that rare. We've been kind of teasing it the whole time we've been talking.
When Madam Web attacks, you may pay 2. If you do, all opposing character types must block Madam Web this turn. That's a great way of sucking up characters, so you can slip other, I don't know, fix-it characters through the back door, well, because they can't block them.
Hmm.
It does cost 2, which is pretty high price, and the fielding cost on the third side is 2, which is a bit nasty. And it also opens the door to shenanigans, as we mentioned with Adam Warlock. She's a strong card.
Yeah. Yeah, the Medusa Black Bolt combo was pretty strong in Deadpool, and then I was really excited about the 3-cost Deadly to make that combo even faster. And then in the same set, they just completely made it obsolete by making this one card that does the whole thing.
Yeah, that did kind of put the nerf on the rare Black Bolt.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh God, we're gonna Moondragon. I don't know. Okay, on a Guardians team,
No.
lovely. Mantis was the new. She was like a reprint of somebody.
Of
Jade, wasn't
Zatanna.
it? No, was it Zatanna? Oh, I was thinking
Yeah,
Jade.
when fielded, draw a die and put it in your prep area.
And when KO'd, is that also Zatanna or Jade? Anyway,
I
never mind.
think that might have also been a Zatanna card, yeah.
There's
Mantis has higher defense stats, but it's not actually that helpful when you want to keep refielding her, so.
so let's skip a few Guardians with all due
Oh,
apologies
yeah.
and
All
move.
the way down to Norman Osborn, I think.
Nobby. Don't call me Gobby, also known as Nobby for obvious reasons. Well, are they obvious? I don't know. It's strong. When fielded, Norman Osborn deals 1 damage to your opponent for each villain character die in the field zone, yours and your opponent. So it's both sides of the field, and it's per die rather than per character, which makes it kind of brutal.
Oh, yeah.
And the fielding cost of 1 on every level is pretty good too.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're like me and you haven't managed to pull the super rare, the other ones are good if you, just for a theme night or something, need to play a villain team, because they both do really great thing for villains. But that super rare is on another level.
And a big thank you to Michaela, who swapped her Norman Osborn with a bunch of my foils and things. Thank you very much. Much
Yeah, there
appreciated.
you go.
I love Norman Osborn in the comics. He's my fave. What's next? Novacore?
Novacore uniform. When fielded, equipped to a character, that character die gets +2/+2. If it leaves the field zone, send this die to the use pile. It's like equipment, but for everybody. This is honestly the kind of thing that I was hoping Dice Masters would have more of, kind of the idea that you could kind of have the equipment from all the different superheroes being used by different superheroes and kind of get that mismatch thing going in. So I kind of love the theme of it in general, but with things like the common Yanti that get unblockable if you use an action, here's a 2-cost action that only you can buy that makes your common Yantis +2, well, a single one, +2/+2, and then it's unblockable and you're dealing like 5 damage with it.
That's pretty good, actually. Yeah, I've not used that, but I can see that there's some potential there. You wanted to mention the rare, I think.
The rare, yeah. When equip that to a character, when that character die attacks, it deals 1 damage to all opposing character dice. If
So
that character die leaves the field zone, then it immediately to the use pile.
It's a bit like Daisy in that regard. So
a bit like Daisy, yes. It's like an equipable thing that you can put on any character. Great for removing sidekicks, but also, like we talked about, triggering Danger Room, triggering
Staff of the whatever. Yeah,
and this one specifically only deals it to your opponent's character, so you could use it with Danger Room because it would knock out your own things.
Okay. So. You discovered a use for Nova Prime, which nobody had thought of. No, not the rare. Which one?
The uncommon, I think.
Uncommon? Yeah. Okay.
When Nova Prime blocks, you may pay 1 to prevent all damage to it. And the only reason I like this one is just because of Overcrush. Overcrush only triggers if the blocking character die is KO'd.
Yep.
And so with this, you put it in the field, your opponent's going to try and make their fix-it, Overcrush. I mean, there are other ways to use Fix It, but if you're trying to use Overcrush, for 1 energy every turn, you can completely prevent all the damage to the Nova Prime die, or maybe multiple Nova Prime dice, and then they just don't take any damage at all. So if Overcrush is something that you're worried about, that would be a great way around it in the new modern.
Zack's hidden gem. Punisher, Sorcerer Supreme. No. Quasar sounded interesting, but I've not seen it get much play. But the rare has an interesting global. Pay a bolt, gain 1 ? Use this ability once per turn, and the actual ability is while Quasar is active, you may spend any type of energy to activate global abilities. That's kind of cool. There's a use case for that. It's not sure what it is yet.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to play King Black Bolt, maybe now you can just use whatever energy you want.
Yeah, but then you have to pay 5 and actually field him. So
yeah, if you're kind of person who really kind of needs that energy, that's pretty helpful.
Ricochet Slinger is useful on an infiltrate team. That's your ramp source. That's really good if you're playing infiltrate. While Ricochet,
that's a take so much ramp and take burn damage kind of ramp source right
there. That's a sort of precursor to all this mimic ramp and spot infiltrate ramp. This was doing the same thing first, but you have to run an infiltrate team. Each time one of your character dice uses infiltrate, draw a die from your bag and add it to your prep area. Very strong on the right team.
It is per die. You get like a couple of spots out, and all of a sudden you're drawing 3-4 dice a turn for it.
You want to talk about Rocket? Rocket's cool.
Rocket, yeah, the uncommon Rocket Raccoon. When Rocket Raccoon is KO'd, deal his attack damage to target character die. I can't take all the credit for this one. I believe it was Ben who told me about this one. And I had it on the list, but I hadn't really thought about it much. But, with things like Madame Masque, with things like Wonder Woman, it can be pretty tough to ping off characters if your opponent is prepared for it. But there are very few ways to prevent your opponent from being able to do this Rocket Raccoon damage to him. So Rocket Raccoon has got 2, 3, and 4 attack and only 1, 2, and 2 defense. So for a couple of energy, and you can do this on your opponent's turn, because as long as he gets KO'd, he gets to deal his attack damage. You could either leave him as a blocker, or you could just ping him yourself and take out anything with 3 or 4 defense, which is most of the good control pieces in the game. And that would be a pretty good way to do it without having to worry about having to rely on pings or Madame Masque or anything like that.
And there's a 3-cost Absorbing Man, possibly the uncommon, which allows you to double your when KO'd effects. So you can actually...
Yeah, he actually has more attack even too, so he gets to deal more.
Cool. Yeah, that'd be good. What was next? Ronan. No.
Yeah, obviously the rare Ronan the Accuser.
Sword Agent, not so much. Somebody used a Sword Agent. I don't know which one was interesting. Yeah. Ally gets 1+1 defense.
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
Definitely got to talk about the spot though.
Spot. Yeah. Okay. Not the infiltrate, well, the uncommon one, I think. Portal Jumper. Yeah. While the spot is active, whenever you draw and roll a die outside your clear and draw step, draw and roll an extra die. Think of that with cards that allow you to pull and draw dice, such as Investigation. What else was there? It was Superhuman.
Uncommon Samantha Wilson.
Oh, yeah, God, yeah. And there was SHRA has been rotated out, right? But there's...
Yes.
Anyway, so just those cards. So when you pull 2 dice for your investigation, you can pull another 2 dice. This has not been explicitly ruled on, but I think everyone's inferring from the Dark Magician, Beast 666, and Thing rulings that it's when you draw 2, you don't just draw 1 extra die, you draw 1 extra die per die that you've drawn. So instead of 2, you draw 4. That's how I'm playing it.
Yeah, there you go. I'm going to put a slight plug in for the common spot, only because it is the cheapest infiltrate character.
Yep. Okay.
There it is. We got to talk about the uncommon Squirrel Girl. So first of all, you get a bunch of squirrel tokens, and unlike the promo Squirrel Girl, these are unlimited numbers of squirrel tokens.
Cool.
As long as you can keep her active. But I've always wanted to win a game by just getting a bunch of squirrel tokens out. But the global is really where the action is here. And this one, definitely the credit has to go to Patrick, a.k.a. Shadow Meld, for this one. Pay a fist, redirect 1 damage dealt by a character die you control to target character die. And the thing about this is that it's so wide open. It doesn't matter what kind of damage is being dealt. It doesn't matter if you're doing the damage to a character die that you control or an opponent's character die. There are so many ways you can use this. If you're going to use that Daisy Johnson, for example, you can redirect some of the damage that she would deal to your own character dice to your opponent's character dice. You redirect it to your opponent specifically, but there are things like the mindless ones where when they fielded, they deal you a damage. Well, now you can redirect that damage to a target character die instead. And you can make some pretty interesting aggro teams if you are able to get some cheap characters out and then use their damage to ping off your opponent's sidekicks and get the unblockable. Definitely a little bit more powerful than they might have realized when they printed that.
That's pretty cool. And Zack would be happy to supply you with squirrel tokens, obviously.
Oh my god, so many squirrel tokens.
What's left? Okay, so there was Star-Lord super rare, was call out.
If you're gonna play Guardians, you gotta have that.
Yeah, and then stick. You wanted to. There was a rare stick. What does he do?
The rare stick.
No, that's not bad. When stick is blocked, deal 2 damage
yeah,
to each die, blocking him before damage is dealt. If this KOs every blocking die, stick is unblocked. I mean, it's kind of cool, but I'm not totally convinced by that.
I mean, it basically makes him unblockable to things that have less than 2 defense. Or you could ping things before the attack step so that they only have 2 defense left, basically. And then he gets effectively unblockable. Or maybe you can use some force attack, and then you can definitely use that damage to KO something and get it to go through unblocked. So he's got 3, 5, 6 attack, and they don't want to let him go through too often.
Yeah, he's got the uncommon has call out, and those stats make it quite good, like the Agent Venom earlier, but without the extra ability. And Thanos uncommon. Yeah,
gotta talk about Well, first of all, the common. Making all villain character dice blank. If you don't rely on villains, there are a lot of teams that do, even if they're not main win condition isn't a villain. Things like Shriek, things like, the Collector's a villain, Scarlet Witch is a villain. And so even the little control pieces they might have included could just be completely negated by that one card.
That's pretty cool if you can get it out. And the uncommon says, when fielded, name an opposing character replacing all previous choices. While Thanos is active, the named character cannot be fielded. While Thanos is active, when the named character die is put into the use pile, Thanos deals your opponent 4 damage. Jeez. So you wait for them to buy loads of multiple men.
Yeah, right?
And then do that. Yeah. That's pretty good.
I always wanted to pull it off against Guy Gardner after they'd already bought a couple of them. Because they definitely won't stay in the field. And then they just can't get it back out. It's like Blob, but on steroids.
Yeah, right. Super Blob. Okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. And finally, we should wrap up. We wanted to mention, I think, 2 of the Yondus. What are the Yondus? Just one. Common
Yondu, just when fielded, deal 1 damage to all opposing character dice. I'm always looking for ways to do that, and that is one of the ways to do it, although fielding costs are a little bit bad.
He's pretty cool.
I do want to mention the uncommon Yellow Jacket, who can be unblockable. You have to spin him down a level, but that's free, so you don't have to worry about that. And then he can be unblockable. And there are lots of ways where you can give him some bonus stats or something. And so just another unblockable character, unblockable for free.
For 4, he costs 4.
Yeah, it's a bit tough, but
Yanti common. But okay, you don't have to roll an action die, so fair enough.
Yeah.
Maybe one mention for Yondu rare. I think Matt Jourdain had it too. I think it was him. With just loads of golems. Just get loads of golems into your use pile at the right time. You can do stupid amounts of damage. So that was a fun combo.
Yeah, and you can fabricate him to do the KO. Yeah, I can see that as being a kind of a fun combo.
Anyway, there you go. That's it. I like that set. It's a really fun set. And apologies to all the Guardians characters that we didn't really mention. Rocket Raccoon stands out as the sort of best Guardian who's good on non-Guardian teams. Thank you very much for listening. We hope you've enjoyed it. And what are we looking at next time, Zach?
Next time will be the X-Men First Class set.
Cool. Look forward to it. Take care. Thanks very much for listening.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.
What did we clock in out there?
I was